What is a hero? If I were asked to give my thoughts on what a hero entails without referencing a dictionary, I would say that a hero was someone or something that inspires or evokes awe for doing something that few would be willing to do, or doing something that few are able to do, or doing something that they probably shouldn't have been doing in the first place, but someone observed it and liked what they saw. So for some, their hero is their father. For some, it is a teacher. And most heroes may be unaware that they were or are someone's hero, but they were chosen and there's nothing they can do about it. At least at the moment they were chosen. Now, when hero meets large-scale influence, the story becomes a little different. A hot dog eating champion can be a hero to someone, but it becomes a problem when that is taken as an opportunity to demonize vegetarians and forcefully shove wieners down their throat, even though they prefer carrots, right? And therein lies the crux of the dilemma, the moment when influence and subjectivity delegate the constitutions of a hero versus a criminal. Even though both are similar, in similar circumstances, merely separated by the characters and converging interests. Now, some Americans said Caitlyn Jenner was a hero for self-expression, while others said Kanye West was a jackass for self-expression. Hillary Clinton didn't use the hero label, but she certainly had words to describe the way that she felt about the woman in this picture. Now, to be fair, Hillary expressed admiration for what would amount to Margaret Sanger's tenacity. Now, I could have shown any other picture of Margaret, but I showed this picture on purpose to communicate what other people saw when they saw Margaret, as opposed to what Hillary Clinton saw when she saw Margaret. Now, imagine if Hillary Clinton became president and made Margaret Sanger Day a national holiday. So vegetarian, meat, hot dog shoved down your throat. And you can find this dichotomy replicating across the cultural divides, where the perspective of the American hero was determined by which side of the historical record you were viewing from. So Nelson Mandela, take him for instance. He's a friend to America. Fidel Castro was considered an enemy to America. Yet, he was a friend to Nelson Mandela and heralded as a hero to many of the African people. Right? Now take Nat Turner, who led a short-lived slave revolt against the promulgators of injustice upon his people. Now he has no national holiday, nor is he regarded as a national hero, nor a patriot at large. Yet Andrew Jackson is. Now, is Nat Turner any different from Patrick Henry, who is quoted as having said, "Give me liberty or give me death," as he spoke before the Virginia Assembly in 1775. "Give me liberty or give me death" was so impactful as a statement that it became the war cry during the Revolutionary War. Now, 56 years later, many saw Nat Turner as giving the same war cry under conditions worse than that which initiated the Revolutionary War. But the opposition, who subjected these revolutionaries unto the oppressive conditions that were the reason for the revolution, did neither see Nat Turner nor treat Nat Turner as they did the man whose sentiment Nat Turner was arguably replicating in his own actions. Now, Patrick Henry died fairly wealthy, reportedly owning 67 slaves and multiple properties at the time of his death, buried in a mausoleum on his family plot. Nat Turner, on the other hand, was executed and dismembered. After 185 years of being passed around like a game of sadistic hot potato, Richard Hatcher, who served as the first so-called African-American mayor of Gary, Indiana, managed to get his hands on Nat Turner's skull and place it into the hands of Nat Turner's descendants, so that he may be given some semblance of being properly placed to rest.
My honor to present this remains to you.
Being able to hold that piece of his body that he couldn't own for himself, we'll be able to treat it with the respect and honor that it is due, that we're going to be able to give him the burial that he deserves. Thank you for giving him back to us and for letting us take him home.
Now, this was in 2016, not that long ago. Now imagine had someone managed to exhume the skeletal remains of George Washington and turn his skull into a flower pot. Imagine just how outraged the nation would become. But ask yourself, why was there no media outrage when Nat Turner's skull was returned into the fold of his bloodline? Why was it some sort of celebratory event? And why did it finally have to come into the hands of a black man before anyone had the decency to put an end to that sick and twisted tradition of pass the skull of a Negro? Perhaps because they did not see him as they saw themselves. Well, before this black man was able to do what he did, someone before him had to first break the chain. A husband and a wife, who were identified as civil rights activists, delivered the skull to Richard Hatcher, who was reportedly attempting to establish a civil rights museum at the time. And how did these activists acquire the remains? As they reported, they got it from a family of physicians that kept it as a family heirloom, passing it down for 3 generations. These were doctors. Doctors! That alone is a scary thought. But Nat Turner was a hero in America, but not to America, which is why his body was divided into portions and sold at auctions, his skin fashioned into purses and wallets, like a demented flea market they made out of him to offset the inspiration brought about by martyrdom. Yet, Andrew Jackson is a hero.
This means, in the case of an American Negro, born in that glittering republic, and in the moment you are born, since you don't know any better, every stick and stone and every face is white, and since you have not yet seen a mirror, you suppose that you are too. It comes as a great shock around the age of 5 or 6 or 7 to discover that the flag to which you have pledged allegiance, along with everybody else, has not pledged allegiance to you. It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you. It comes as a great shock to discover that the country, which is your birthplace, and to which you owe your life and your identity, has not in its whole system of reality evolved any place for you. The disaffection, the demoralization, and the gap between one person and another, only on the basis of the color of their skins, begins there and accelerates throughout a whole lifetime, so that presently you realize you're 30 and are having a terrible time managing to trust your countrymen.
How far removed at present day do you believe America is from the pervading sentiment that James Baldwin observed at the time of giving this address? It comes as a great shock to discover that the country which is your birthplace, he says, and to which you owe your life and your identity, has not in its whole system of reality evolved any place for you. These are the words of James Baldwin. So considering these words, do you believe that what he said then is still valid at present day? I would say indeed it is, and I would even go further to say it is impossible to remedy without causing the complete uprooting of America herself. What do I mean? Well, what did he say?
It comes as a great shock to discover that the country, which is your birthplace and to which you owe your life and your identity, has not in its whole system of reality, evolved any place for you.
Has not evolved in its whole system of reality any place for you. Whole system of reality. The only way to manifest such a system is in an isolated tribe under one tradition where the beliefs of one individual is indistinguishable from the beliefs of another. Had that been a reality in America, there would be no opposing narrative that seeks to shame the descendants from preaching to never forget our families and what this country has done. But instead, there's an opposing side that has grown weary of our narrative. They say everybody's had something bad happen sometime in history, so get over it. And the image of the slave owner is deified in the currency. In God we trust, right? Because for most of America, to them, they see a president and an American hero. But if you were to ask the Seminoles, it would be like putting a wolf on the dollar bill for sheeps to spend. Right? Now, the separation of race prevents it. This is what James Baldwin said. It comes as a great shock after comfortably assimilating into a society who holds the man who slaughtered many of the Seminoles in high regard, just to ultimately find out that you were the Seminoles. And that will never change in an America that sees Andrew Jackson as they see themselves, nor one that teaches the Seminole to do the same by usurping the heroes they hold in high regard with the ones who slaughtered their ancestors. Now, we live in an impossible society built off of war and much bloodshed that seeks to sustain itself by the suppressing of one side of the historical record and the elevation of the other. Right? So we live in a society that says, remember the Alamo, where Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone were held in high regard as patriotic heroes who fought for the Alamo. But the phrase, remember the Alamo, is a grossly truncated call to recollection. Now, what is left out is, remember the Alamo and how we stole that property. And Mexico was only defending what was rightfully theirs, but we didn't care because we wanted it. Just like when we stole Mexico's cannon, and when they asked for it, we taunted them by not only breaking our agreement, but also putting a sign on it that read, "You want it? Come take it," because we were criminals. See, you were stupid, I guess, for trusting us. I mean, we kept your cannon, which ultimately started the Battle of Gonzales, because we preferred war and plunder over honor and treaties. These treaties that we had no intention of keeping when we gave our word that meant absolutely nothing. But because you fought us and ultimately lost, we tell our children that we were patriots and we lie on your name. You see, because there's no incentive in your remembering to also remember the dishonor of your predecessors with the same zeal that you have in remembering who was the last man standing on the battlefield after the bloodshed. Because to remember why blood was being shed in the first place comes at the expense of the avatar by which your sense of patriotism is drawn. So, a criminal to one country becomes a hero and a patriot to another. So you could look, race and color drives a nation at the surface, but culture drives a nation at the core. And what James Baldwin said then, which is still relevant now, is that America is the land of surface dwellers. It's an amalgamation of converging interests and forced relations that scream for their voices to be heard and their narratives to be held precious as they hold the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. When a nation makes heroes of treaty breakers and enslavers, I mean, executors and con men, carving the faces of their dead into the mountains so that no one will forget. In one breath, praise the past and all of the accomplishments, and in the next breath, telling you to let the past be the past. I mean, men who perfectly embody the dichotomy of saint and savage sinner, carved into a shrine for something that you liked that they did once upon a time. And then other people tear down the old statues for something you heard about that they did once upon a time. But all of it is vanity and idol worship. Eventually, all statues come down and all graven images lose their context, and no one remembers slave and no one remembers the slave master. No one remembers the Alamo, right? I mean, is there anyone who can point to the heroes of Atlantis? A once great nation now reduced to rumor and folklore, so forgotten that whether it even existed is questioned. So for all of the heroic efforts that might have been and the embellishments that may have not, all we know for sure is that Mother Nature is undefeated. And after you're born, only death is certain. And if someone felt moved by your existence, they will attempt to replicate their sentiment in others by bestowing hero upon your name for doing something that they liked that you did. So, a narrative can be protected. It can even be corrected, but not always respected until a man sees you as he sees himself. Then, your heroes become his heroes. And when he sees the daughter of the Indian slaughtered, he sees his own daughter slaughtered, as well as the slaughter of himself. When he sees the demented merchandising of the deceased, whose descendants have yet to put him to rest, he sees it as though it is one of his own. And when he hears, "Give me liberty," or "Give me death," it's his own voice that he hears crying out. But we are surface dwellers in this unfortunate dichotomy. Saint and sinner, ally or foe. And the constitution of a hero, it seems that it only lies in the eyes of the beholder.